Today, we're going to talk about an AI breakthrough that didn't just nudge science forward, it literally launched it into a whole new era. This is the incredible story of how AI finally cracked a puzzle that had scientists totally stumped for more than half a century.
I mean, think about it for a second. What if the cures for diseases, or even solutions to climate change, were all hidden inside something so small we can't even see it? It sounds like something out of a movie, right? But it's very, very real. And the answer is hiding in the microscopic world of proteins.
The challenge we're diving into is called the protein folding problem. And you've got to understand, this wasn't just a minor scientific question. People in the field talked about it like it was this legendary, almost mythical quest. It was biology's version of an impossible problem that stumped the smartest people for decades.
So what even is a protein? The easiest way to think about it is like a long string of beads. Each of those beads is an amino acid, but it doesn't stay a string. It twists and scrunches up and folds itself into a super specific, really complex three-dimensional shape. And here's the key. That final shape is everything. It's what determines what that protein actually does, whether it's carrying oxygen around your body or making your muscles move.
Okay, so to really appreciate how huge this breakthrough is, you first have to understand the absolutely painstaking quest that came before it. For decades, scientists were on this hunt for protein structures, and honestly, it was an incredibly tough slog.
The original method they used was called X-ray crystallography, and it was just brutal. First, you had to somehow convince a protein to form a perfect little crystal. Then you'd shoot X-rays at it, and based on how those X-rays scattered, you had to work backward and basically guess the shape. It was as much art as it was science, and it took forever.
And this story just perfectly captures the insane level of effort we're talking about. To figure out the very first protein structure ever, a protein called myoglobin, it took a guy named John Kendrew 12 years. Get this, he had to get a big chunk of whale meat shipped all the way from Peru just to grow crystals big enough to work with. His discovery was so monumental, it won him the Nobel Prize back in 1962.
But the pace of discovery was just glacial. After that Nobel Prize in '62, it took another 20 years to solve just about 100 more. Think about that. Even as recently as 2020, a PhD student could spend their entire doctoral program just to figure out the structure of a single protein. The progress was just painfully slow.
So, with lab work moving so slowly, scientists naturally turned to computers. The big hope was that maybe, just maybe, pure computing power could crack the code. But this new direction came with its own gigantic wall to run into. Which brings up a really logical question, right? If we know the exact sequence of all the beads on the string, why can't we just tell a supercomputer to figure out how it folds up? Well, the answer is something called Levinthal's paradox. The number you see on the screen, 10 to the power of 300, is just astronomical. It's the number of ways even a short protein could theoretically fold. A computer trying to check every single one of those possibilities would literally take longer than the age of the entire universe to finish. So yeah, brute force was not going to work. To try and speed things up, a competition was created in 1994 called CASP. You can think of it as like the World Cup for protein folding. Every couple of years, research groups from all over the world would get together and test their latest and greatest computer models against each other. It became the ultimate proving ground. And there were some really brilliant early attempts. An algorithm called Rosetta was a big deal for a long time. They even created Rosetta at Home, which let people volunteer their home computer's idle time to help with the calculations. Then came Foldit, an actual video game where players' spatial reasoning and intuition often beat the best computers. But even with all this creativity, progress just stalled. The scores at CASP kind of leveled off. They had hit a wall, and everyone knew a totally new approach was needed. And that right there brings us to the breakthrough. This is where DeepMind enters the picture with their revolutionary AI, AlphaFold. And this is where the entire story just takes a massive, exciting turn. So in 2018, DeepMind, the company famous for its AI that mastered the game of Go, they showed up at CASP with the first version of AlphaFold. And it won, pretty handily actually. But even though it was the best, its predictions just weren't accurate enough for the scientists to say the problem was solved. They'd made a big splash, but they weren't there yet. So DeepMind went back to the drawing board and built AlphaFold 2.
The absolute genius of it was this system they called the EVO Former. The best way to think about it is that it created two towers of information. One tower knew all the biological rules, the other knew all the geometric rules. And the magic was that these two towers could talk to each other, passing clues back and forth over and over again, 48 times, constantly making the prediction better and better until it all clicked into place.
Their other brilliant idea was something called the structure module. See, instead of trying to fold the protein link by link like a chain, which is really easy to mess up early on, AlphaFold 2 just treated all the amino acids like a cloud, a bag of parts, if you will. It figured out the best overall arrangement for the whole cloud first, and then connected the dots. This gave it way more freedom to find the right answer without getting stuck. And this is the moment, the climax of the whole story. In 2020, AlphaFold 2 came back to CASP. And its predictions were so unbelievably accurate that they were basically identical to the real physical structures that took months or years to solve in a lab. They had done it. John Moltz, the guy who co-founded CASP and dedicated his whole career to this, he just said, suddenly, this is a solution. We'd solved the problem. Can you just imagine the feeling in that room? So what does this all mean? Well, this breakthrough signals the start of a completely new era in science. Solving the protein folding problem wasn't just some trophy for the shelf. It has thrown open the doors to a whole world of new possibilities. We're moving from just predicting what nature does to actually creating things with it. I mean, just look at this chart. It puts the whole thing into perspective. In more than 60 years, all of humanity managed to figure out the structure of about 150,000 proteins. In just a few months, AlphaFold predicted the structure of over 200 million of them. That's basically every protein known to science. This wasn't just an improvement, it was a revolution. And we're not talking about some far-off future benefit. This is having an impact right now. Scientists are already using AlphaFold's data to help develop a new malaria vaccine, to figure out how to fight antibiotic resistance, and to understand exactly how protein mutations cause diseases like cancer. It's like a massive shot of adrenaline for all of biology. So what's next? AlphaFold totally mastered the goal of predicting the shapes of proteins that already exist in nature. The new frontier, which is being led by pioneers like David Baker, is designing completely new proteins from scratch. Proteins that can do specific jobs we need them to do, like, say, an enzyme that can eat plastic or capture carbon from the air. I think John Jumper, the guy who led the AlphaFold team, put it perfectly. He said, speedups of 2x are nice. Speedups of 100,000x change what you do. You start to rebuild your science. It's not just about doing the same science faster, it's about being able to ask completely new questions that you never would have dreamed of asking before. And that leaves us with a pretty powerful thought to end on. For over 50 years, the protein folding problem was like this unclimbable mountain for biology, and now AI has conquered it. So the question we have to ask ourselves now is, what's the next impossible mountain we're going to climb?